display of Provincial.
The Speaker.
Let us pray. Almighty God, where you have called us to govern this province, we ask your help to make decisions and laws that will be just and that will promote the interests of the people. Almagtige God, ons bid dat u gedurende ons vergaderings ons die nodige wysheid sal gee en ons motiewe suiwer sal hou en dat u ons sal help om al ons tekortkominge te oorkom en al ons besluite aan u op te dra. Sikalela ilezwe letu na bantu balo. Umusile ukulungu kwepondo letu. Nkosi sikalela i Afrika. Skina abantwano bayo. Kokela inkokeli zayo. Uniki ukolo i Afrika. All this we beg in your holy name. Amen. Please be seated. Order, honourable members. Before we proceed, I would like to remind the honourable members about some of the logistical arrangements. As has been our practice to date, honourable members will participate in the sitting of the House, both from here in the chamber with the presiding officer and table staff and via Microsoft Teams, and our standing rules have accordingly been amended to accommodate such hybrid sittings. Honourable members, the quorum requirements for the sitting of the House are provided for in the Constitution and the standing rules. Unless there's an indication of unanimous concurrence, voting will be confined to members present in the House and on the hybrid system who are entitled to cast their votes as per the ATC issued on the 11th of August 2020. Members present in the chamber and via Microsoft Teams have all the privileges and immunities imparted by law. Honourable members, if you are considered out of order by the presiding officer, you will have your microphones muted and called to order. The Sergeant at Arms will record all members' attendance. Honourable members, I wish to remind you that in instances where these directives do not cover a particular eventuality, the standing rules must apply, and in instances where these rules cannot be applied, the ruling by the presiding officer is final. Honourable members, you are requested to please ensure that your microphones are muted when the presiding officer recognizes you, and when you are done speaking, to please mute your microphones. The media have also been granted access to the MS Teams meetings as guests of the WCPP. However, I wish to remind the members of the press that they may not use the chat room or speak or activate their cameras while the sitting is in progress. Honourable members, for the sitting, language translation services are available in the chamber as usual and on Microsoft Teams via the respective channels. Honourable members, in conclusion, I wish to remind you that no interjections are permitted during these hybrid sittings, and to this end, I wish to draw your attention to Rule 40 of our standing rules. The Secretary will now read the order of the day.
Consideration of Principle of the Western Cape Appropriation Bill.
Thank you very much. I now recognize the Minister of Finance, Minister Baartman.
Gondwana sê dis oneties van hulle om verder in die mis te bly. Want jy kan nie teen dit stem en dan kies om steeds van
Herman.
Can I please ask that the table staff check who the person is that activated the microphones? And I wish to remind the members of that's attending the sitting virtually. If you wish to raise a point of order or draw my attention, to please use the raised hand functionality, and I will recognize you. If it's not a member, can I ask that the table staff please engage the person on the hybrid system, and if the person is not willing to adhere to the rules, to please exit the person from the hybrid sitting. With that being said, Honourable Minister, my apologies. You may continue.
Thank you so much, Honourable Speaker. Honourable Speaker, members of this House, people of the Western Cape. Our Premier called upon our government, about members of this House and the people of the Western Cape to step up. And the 2025-26 main budget sets out this pathway to fund our vision for growth and jobs. South Africa is in a difficult fiscal environment. Money is tight, and the demand for government to deliver more and for more people is rapidly increasing. Our Western Cape economy continues to demonstrate resilience and economic growth, with projected growth of 0.9% in 2025 and 1.4% in 2026. Our provincial economy has rebounded from the pandemic, with our unemployment rate now at 19.6%, the lowest in the country, and employment growing by 12.4% since pre-pandemic levels. Speaker, however, we simply cannot keep up with population growth at 19.6%, outpacing our economic and job growth gains. While we have made impressive inroads over the past decade, we must do more, and we'll be stepping up to create a prosperous and safe Western Cape where businesses grow, jobs can be created, and communities can thrive. We have tabled a 269.5 billion rand budget to be implemented over the next 3 years. 95.4% of this total budget will come from national government allocations, with the rest being our own receipts. As part of our provincial equitable share formula over the MTEF, we have received 1.5 billion rand for compensation of employees resulting from the National Wage Agreement, as well as 113 million rand for the Presidential Youth Employment Initiatives for teacher assistants for this financial year. Our financial year budget for this year is 89.316 billion rand, of which we will allocate 87.9 billion to departments. 57.3 million rand will be direct charges for the provincial parliament, 1 billion rand to our reserves to mitigate disasters and unexpected external shocks, 176.9 million rand for our asset reserve for upcoming infrastructure projects, and 73.5 million rand in our energy and water reserve for upcoming projects. Speaker, this 269.5 billion rand budget to step up for growth and jobs will allocate 43.789 billion rand for growth for jobs, 3.955 billion rand for safety programs, 194.9 billion rand for programs for educated, healthy and caring society, and for programs in innovation, culture and governance, we will allocate 23.4 billion rand. Our growth for jobs priority aims to create a trillion rand economy and create 600,000 jobs over the next decade. And to achieve this, we will use our growth for jobs funding via implementation of 155 growth for jobs projects across key economic drivers and departments. Some of these will include driving investment, which will be setting aside 26 million rand for key investment summits, including leveraging the G20 and B20 summit, hosting the Regional Leaders Summit, and launching our inaugural Provincial Investment Summit, aiming to unlock 1 billion rand worth of investment into our province. We will allocate 382.8 million rand over the MTEF across 17 energy programs to reduce reliance on Eskom, support businesses to keep their doors open, create jobs, opportunities in the green economy, and keeping the lights on for residents of our province. We will further reconfigure our energy reserve to the energy and water reserve as we wish to secure an additional 220 million cubic meters of water annually by 2030. Speaker, to safeguard our residents, our infrastructure and our economy, we will allocate 205.8 million rand over the MTEF for disaster preparedness and response. Our infrastructure is a foundation of a growing economy, and over the next 3 years, we will invest 30.879 billion rand over 924 projects, ensuring communities have better access to better roads, housing, schools, and healthcare facilities. And to support mobility, we will invest 8 million rand over the next 3 years in a freight rail revitalization framework to ease bottlenecks and boost port efficiency, and 4 million rand in the current financial year for the Intertown Rural Transport Solution, providing transport solutions between rural towns. Speaker, the safety of our residents and businesses are a fundamental priority, and we will therefore allocate over the next 3 years 3.955 billion rand to our safety programs, including 1.3 billion rand for LEAP, K9 units, and law enforcement reaction units. To support victims of gender-based violence, the Department of Social Development will receive 235 million rand for Victim Empowerment Program, 822 million for Child Protection Services, and 353 million for family strengthening programs. To tackle gangsterism in our communities, we will allocate 96.6 million rand to the Provincial Joint Anti-Gang Priority Committee over the MTEF to support efforts to dismantle criminal networks. Through these investments and other programs in our budget, we will create safer communities across the province. Speaker, when looking towards our spending of this budget on social services, as a percentage, the Western Cape government will spend 80% of our total budget on social services, allocating 101 billion rand for education, 100 billion rand for health and wellness, 8.4 billion rand for social services, and 6.4 billion rand for housing and community amenities. We will invest this 101 billion rand in education over the MTEF, of which we will spend 74.2 billion rand on compensation of employees, or 74.28%. We will invest 4.3 billion rand over the MTEF in early childhood development. We have secured 2.298 billion rand over the MTEF by the budget facility for infrastructure for the Western Cape Rapid Schools Build program for education infrastructure, and we will spend 113 million rand in the current financial year for the implementation of the Presidential Youth Employment Initiative for teacher assistants. Speaker, in health, we will invest 100 billion rand of the MTEF to strengthen our systems, of which we will spend 60.223 billion rand on compensation of employees, or 60.22%, and 295 million rand has been provisionally ring-fenced and allocated for the Tygerberg Hospital redevelopment health technology in the 2027 financial year through BFI funding. We will further invest 8.4 billion rand in our Department of Social Development, including alleviating the workload of social workers through the SWIMS application, allocated 4 million rand for its development and rollout. We will increase our subsidies for services to older persons, persons with disabilities, and social relief for humanitarian and disaster response by 121.9 million rand, a 10.94% increase from the 2024 financial year. And we will allocate 15 million rand over the next 3 years for humanitarian relief. These investments are laying the groundwork for an educated, healthy, and more caring Western Cape. And finally, the Western Cape government wants to harness our leverage, our good governance. We want strong municipalities, a future-fit province, leveraging technology for service delivery, and diversifying our revenue sources. To this end, we will allocate 23.4 billion rand towards the innovation, culture, and governance cluster programs. Speaker, through this process, I want to reiterate a point we have made previously. The budget is not just about numbers on a page. It is a plan to grow our economy and create jobs. And I hope that we will all engage today in the various programs of this budget to leverage our fiscal maturity towards growth and jobs. We will do everything we can to achieve the vision of our provincial strategic plan. Van Kaalvoet oor Tafelberg as ons moedspeaker. Dankie. I thank you.
Dankie, achtbare Minister. And I recognize the Honourable Nkondlo. Honourable members, I just wish to remind you to the screen, your time, that the digital clock is on the screen to guide your time. Thank you, Honourable Nkondlo.
Thank you, Honourable Speaker. Honourable Speaker, members of the House, the public. Let me first, Speaker, wish to appeal to yourself and all of us in this House that we send our message of support to the family of Cwecwe and many other GBV and child victims in our country. This is one situation that brings all of us as South Africans across our political divides, across any differences that we may harbor, that at times like this, we need to ask what that the situation means for ourselves and our children. Speaker, allow me to recall that on a Thursday, 27th of March, 2025, the MEC of Finance, Debt Department, tabled the provincial budget. It is worth noting the context that the national government, the Ministry of Treasury, Enoch Godongana, tabled the national budget on Wednesday, 12th March, and yesterday we saw that budget being passed. In the budget, the minister proposed a 0.5% VAT increase. And the DA opportunistically rejected the proposed 0.5% VAT increase, claiming to defend the poor. And this is the disparity in which we want to bring forth the double standard of claiming to defend the poor, while government in this province that is deeply rooted in policies that are actually driving inequality and systematically excluding the poor from the mainstream economy. The tabled budget by MEC of Finance failed to address a number of issues and seeks to present a good governance as a mantra. However, we see through the smokescreen and the posturing. One of the burning issues that this budget fails to address is the cost of living in this province. A cost of living as one of the pillars of the lauded GNU, which our colleagues on the other side have actually signed and agreed upon. The DA in this province has been oblivion to this, to the DA-led municipalities here in this province, Premier, with the city of Cape Town as a lead in this, of abusing tariffs, driving high property rates and utility cost that squeezes the residents, especially the middle class and the poor. The DA speaks on both sides of the mouth, with its leaders masquerading as champions of the poor as they lose their 2026 local government political bait, to draw voters into their fold. Yesterday, they were threatening litigation. Wonder who is paying for this litigation. Maybe the next step that we're going to see is them getting into a flight to go report to the White House and getting South Africa Inc. punished with more tariffs and coming back crying foul about an economy that is not growing. As the champions of the poor, why have you been oblivion? And we've never see you as a leader, Premier, and you as the MEC of Finance and of local government, taking your municipalities to court. When the DA-led municipality imposed a 623 monthly surcharge on residents who installed solar power, as they were called, tax on the sun in Cape Agalas. In the city of Cape Town, they charge resident drought level water tariffs even after the floods that led to more than 80% of dams being full. City of Cape Town also unlawfully been overcharging residents higher electricity tariffs, with 2023-24 NERSA approved a 15.1% tariff increase, and yet the city implemented a 17.7 tariff hike on top of its high prices of previous years. Even when NERSA told the city that the tariff was unlawful, we didn't hear a voice from this house, let alone the leader of DA in John Matrick Stenhuisen. The municipality then applied to the North Gauteng High Court to set aside the NERSA decision of a 15.1 tariff increase. Now they table a 2% increase for electricity tariffs. Now this is the disparity we wish to point out. You take NERSA to court because you want to increase the electricity tariffs beyond the set guidelines. And now you want to position yourself as the party of the poor. A British couple on the We Live in Cape Town page shares what they call the Cape Town price tag of a 23,570 per month. I'm sure this is what it includes, a budget for food, budget for transport, and many other things. I'm sure this is this may be good for tourists and expats with dollars, with pounds, with euros and yen, given the exchange rate and the weak rand. Maybe that is the reason why the DA, why you prioritize e-visas, because you are definitely not interested in the residents of this country. In a survey done by rental property management software South Africa PayProp, they say, I quote, rent is a significantly monthly expense for many South Africans, and the Western Cape remains the most expensive province when it comes to rental prices. The cost of living in Cape Town compared to Durban, for example, is noticeably higher. A recent PayProp rental survey indicated that South Africa's average monthly property rental costs 7,778 per month. The Western Cape's average rental is 9,185 per month, almost 1,500 more than the national average. This is SIF. For those wanting to own properties, in terms of property prices, according to Business Tech 2024, over the 5-year period from 2019 to 2024, the national average property price rose by 23.8%, which amounts to an annual increase of 4.8%. Leading the growth was the Western Cape, where property prices surged by 35.5% during this time. The economic hub of the province is increasingly becoming expensive for its citizens. Cape Town's high cost of rent and services is forcing the working class families out of the city while benefiting the elite.
Order.
The latest MERO indicated the number of indigent households in Cape Town, which have increased
Order.
243,000.
Honorable Nkondlo, please take your seat. Honorable members, there's a member on the floor. The member is allowed to make a contribution. I'm going to allow a bit of latitude because it is a political debate. But please do not drown out the speaker on the floor. I know that it's very the contestation of arguments is good, and that's the purpose of Parliament. So I'm not going to stifle robust debate, but please do not drown out the speaker on the floor. So Honorable Nkondlo, I will protect you. You may continue.
I oblige, Speaker. The truth is always very sour. The latest municipal economic review then indicates the number of indigent households in Cape Town have increased to 243,771 in 2023, representing 16.2% of all households in the Cape, as more families fall below the 7,500 monthly income threshold. This substantial rise is attributed to several key drivers, including an overall decline in income, the rising cost of living driven by increases in food prices.
Honorable Nkondlo, please take your seat. My apologies. Honorable Minister, is that a point of order?
Chairperson, if the truth is always sour, is that why they're whispering sweet nothings to South Africa?
Honorable Minister, that is not a point of order. Please take your seat. Honorable Nkondlo, please take your seat. Honorable Chief Whip of the Opposition, Honorable
No.
Barnes, is that a point of order?
No, I withdraw. You made a ruling.
Thank you very much, Honorable Barnes. Honorable Nkondlo, you may continue.
I'm sure we must open a department of clowns so that clowns can actually just go and lead the others. The substantial rise is attributed to several key drivers, including an overall decline in income, the rising cost of living. Please listen.
Honorable
Premier and
Nkondlo,
MEC.
please take your seat. Honorable Chief Whip of the Majority Party, is that a new point of order because I've already ruled?
Honourable Speaker, I'd just like to know if the member is prepared to take a question on that comment.
Please take your seat. Honorable Nkondlo, are you prepared to take a question?
No.
The honorable member is not prepared to take a
The
question.
rising cost of living driven by increases in food prices, utilities, transport, and housing cost. While the city of Cape Town boasts lower unemployment rates than other metros, it has the second highest proportion of people living below the food poverty line in the country. When we look further, in places like the Beaufort West, registering the worst levels in the district, nearly half, 44.1% of households in the town are classified as indigent, unable to afford basic services and necessities. The Central Karoo is in crisis with an unemployment rate of 29.9%, with this region facing one of the highest joblessness rates in the province. Food insecurity is escalating at an alarming rate In Beaufort West, 42.2% of residents struggle to afford food, up from 39.7% in 2022. In Prince Albert, the situation is even worse, with food insecurity rising from 39.8% to 43.6% in just 1 year. So I would understand why Honorable Constable will always be raising and pleading with this DA government to actually move infrastructure and other developments into Beaufort West, especially now that we have seen that they are able to actually pitch for an investment in Hesekwa for a solar farm that we are looking whether it's not going to pass the committees of Noguthula. We are asking that actually Beaufort West has got exactly the same sun, and I am sure if you can put a solar farm there, Beaufort West community, and actually this kind of challenges of poverty can be resolved. So we join you, Member Constable, on that one. In the Department of Education, a drastic 2.5 billion budget cut included on administration, curriculum, and infrastructure. This resulted in the Provincial Education Department cutting 2,400 teaching posts in response to budget shortfalls. We know when class sizes increase and resources are stretched, the quality of education declines. Currently, the learner education ratio from 33.66 in 2024 to 39.49 for the current year. Already disadvantaged schools, which often lack sufficient resources, are likely to bear the brunt of this shift, deepening educational inequities in the province. The Western Cape is currently facing a housing crisis, according to the National Department. By the end of September 2024, the Western Cape had spent just 41% of its housing grant and only 20% of its informal settlement upgrading partnership grant, far below the 45% benchmark required. Shockingly, the province also failed to submit a rollover application for unspent funds from the previous financial year, further jeopardizing service delivery. This is a clear example of the DA's inability to govern in the interest of the poor. This government is anti-poor. It is more concerned with being perceived as a government for the poor than actually being one. Currently, the housing backlog in the Western Cape has risen to approximately 620,000. This housing crisis is a direct result of the DA's failure to prioritize affordable housing and land distribution. It is important to put things into perspective. When the DA took over this province, the unemployment rate was sitting at 16.9%. When you break it down in demographics, the unemployment rate for African was sitting at 25.9% and for colored demographic at 17.9%. Those were the levels of employment under the governance of the ANC here. Currently, according to the Stats SA as of the fourth quarter of 2024, the Western Cape's official unemployment rate stood at 19.6%. In leading up to the budget speech, we engaged Informal Traders Forum and the Black Business Forum, who have expressed their frustration regarding a government, particularly in this province. They expressed the lack of support and red tape in working with government in the Western Cape, leaving them sidelined and ignored. Again, in days leading up to the SOPA, we received a message from a practitioner within the tourism sector. The message read as follows: we are really struggling to get business or also to be included or invited to conferences in order for us to build connections. We don't know who to approach. You can imagine what we studied. We want to offer the whites who have studied with us, offer us employment to work as guides for them because they are well connected. And
Honorable Nkondo, your time has expired.
As we conclude, the ANC demands the urgent need to address the housing crisis in the province. We demand
Thank you very much, Honorable
prioritize our education.
Thank you very much. Please
and
take your
invest
seat.
in the education of our
Thank you
children.
very much.
I thank you.
Thank you very much. I now recognize, can I just get an indication from the Minister if she needs the, okay, then I recognize the Minister of Health and Wellness, Minister Winger.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. The challenges that South Africa faces are enormous. Right now, the South African economy is projected to grow by just 0.8% this year and 1.2% next year. After a decade of sluggish growth, underinvestment in service delivery and economic infrastructure, our country's unemployment rate remains alarmingly high at 31.9%. Our ports, key to unlocking billions of rand in trade and job creation, continue to underperform, as does our railway network. It's estimated that South Africa loses 1 billion rand in missed trade opportunities every day. This week, the Northwest University Business School's Policy Uncertainty Index showed a sharp increase from 65.7 to 78.6 in the first quarter of 2025. And what is it telling us? That both domestic and international investors are uncertain about whether South Africa's priorities, policies, and funding align to drive prosperity. Speaker, a budget is a government's most significant policy instrument. It is a clear expression of its priorities and goals. This is the first budget of the 7th administration of the Western Cape government and the 4th under the leadership of the DA. And our priorities are clear: drive growth, create jobs, and ultimately improve the well-being of our residents. Over the next 3 years, 269.5 billion rand budget will step up to invest in the people of the Western Cape, creating jobs, strengthening communities, and building a better future for all. 80% of this budget is dedicated to social spending, with education receiving 101 billion rand, healthcare 100 billion rand, housing and community amenities 6.4 billion rand, and social protection 8.4 billion rand. While the DA cares for the poor, the ANC cares for the ANC. Yes. Yesterday, the ANC and many parties in this House tried to gaslight South Africans about the real tax hikes that are being tabled in the National Parliament tomorrow. And we know this will make the poor poorer and increase the cost of living, making life more difficult for all South Africans.
Order.
The fact that the ANC member is raising cost of living in this debate while at the same time supporting a VAT increase is quite staggering, Mr. Speaker.
Order.
The ANC is not the party for the poor.
Order.
The ANC is the party for the ANC. By contrast, the Western Cape budget creates an environment that supports all South Africans. It helps businesses to grow and create jobs while equipping our residents with the skills needed to secure employment. In fact, by the end of last year, employment in the Western Cape had increased by 12.4% since 2020. In the last quarter alone, the province created 62,000 new jobs, contributing to the lowest unemployment rate in the country at 19.6%.
Order.
12.3 percentage points lower than the national average of 31.9%.
Honourable Minister, please take your seat. Honourable Walters, is that a point of order?
Yes, Chair, the enemies of the poor are shouting and disrupting the speaker on the floor.
Thank you very much, Honourable Member. Honourable Member, I'm listening very carefully. As I indicated in the beginning, this is a political debate. I'm going to allow a little bit of latitude. The minute I can't hear the Minister, I will intervene. But I wish to remind all members that when a member is on the floor, to please allow that member his or her opportunity to make their contribution. Please do not drown out the speaker on the floor, and the same respect afforded to all members. Please allow the Minister her opportunity. If you disagree, there's many other speakers on the speakers list that will have an opportunity to rebut the Minister's input if you so wish. Honourable Minister, before you proceed, I saw another hand from the Chief Whip of the Opposition. Honourable Barnes, is that a point of order? Honourable Barnes, you raised your hand. Was that a point of order?
No, Speaker. Speaker, actually, I wanted to say that please address the side of the House. We can't be always listening to frivolous point of orders. It's wrong.
Honourable Chief Whip, thank you very much. Honourable members, thank you very much for your assistance for me to chair this House. I think I'm very capable of doing so and applying the rules. So I will
Speaker.
address the matter if it gets to that point. That was not a frivolous point of order at this point. Continuous points of order becomes frivolous, and until such time, I'm going to allow the members their right to rise on a point of order if they so wish. I now recognize there's another point of order on the virtual platform. Honourable Member, I recognize you.
Thank you very much, Speaker. Why must we allow a representative of our oppressors to teach us about who represent the poor and not? The DA remains our oppressor, and there's no way with which he can argue that they represent the poor.
Honourable
yet they
Member,
remain
that
the
is
rich.
not a point of order. The parliamentary privilege allows members to raise points of order related to procedure in terms of the rules that was adopted by the House at the first sitting of the House. Please do not abuse the platform to make comments when you do raise your point of order. With that being said, Honourable Minister, my apologies, you may continue.
Speaker, the Western Cape budget will continue to support the communities and families who rely on government services the most. We can see this reflected in metrics such as life expectancy. The Western Cape has the highest life expectancy in the country, and the UN's Human Development Index consistently ranks the Western Cape above national averages. This is what being citizen obsessed means and demonstrates that budgetary priorities can shape progress. The Honourable Member raised the City of Cape Town, where the City of Cape Town is spending 1.1 billion rand for bulk services and roads in informal settlements, 133 million rand for new water, sanitation and waste installations. It is spending 10 billion rand on the My City bus route expansion from Khayelitsha and Mitchells Plain to Claremont and Wynberg. It is spending 272 million rand in informal trading infrastructure upgrades. The city has a South Africa record of 39.7 billion rand in infrastructure investment, which is more than the 3 Gauteng metros combined. 75% of this will benefit lower income households. In respect of electricity tariffs, the ANC-run Eskom increase in electricity prices is 11.3%, whereas the DA-run City of Cape Town, the electricity price increase is 2%. We see wasteful expenditure and poor performance in so many ANC-run SOEs like Eskom and its devastating effects on the economy, where in 2023, the South African economy forfeited 2.9 trillion rand in output due to load shedding, 2.9 trillion rand. Prasa, when audit, uncovered around 3,000 ghost employees. But Speaker, not here, not in the Western Cape. To realize our vision of creating hope and instilling dignity so that people can live lives that they value, the Western Cape government has outlined in the provincial strategic plan for the next 5 years how we will coordinate our efforts to achieve progress. Our ultimate goal is to ensure that the Western Cape remains an educated, healthy and caring society, with our focus remaining on our growth for jobs strategy, creating safer communities by reducing and preventing violence, and fostering a culture of innovation and good governance. By leveraging the resources and expertise across provincial government departments and by being truly transversal, we can continue to create an environment where our residents thrive and lead meaningful lives. But Speaker, we cannot achieve sustained economic growth if our provincial budget allocations do not reflect the needs of our residents. The Western Cape is the 3rd largest province in terms of both population and economic contribution, yet we only receive the 5th largest budget allocation. Nearly 80% of our budget comes from the provincial equitable share, but the term equitable is misleading. There is little fairness in a formula that disadvantages the majority of South Africans who live in urban centres like Gauteng, KwaZulu-Natal and the Western Cape. For example, Limpopo and the Eastern Cape, despite having smaller populations, over the MTEP will receive 28 billion and 52 billion rand more than the Western Cape. A fundamental revision of the PES formula is urgently needed to drive growth and job creation, which benefits all South Africans. Speaker, this provincial budget strikes the difficult balance of protecting the essentials for the poor and vulnerable who need it the most, and prioritising jobs and economic growth as we step up for growth and for jobs.
Thank you, Honourable Minister. Your time has expired. Thank you very much. And I recognise the Honourable Constable. Can I just get an indication if you need the...
Speaker, good morning, and good morning to all members in this House. Speaker, we are gathering here today to critically analyze this budget, the budget that was tabled from the MEC of Finance. With my limited time, I want to recall some issues with regards to the biasness to urban areas and the misalignment against rural areas. I also want to draw a line to the disparities when it comes to the allocation of grants, specifically in areas such as housing, basic services, and public transport. But here's the crux, Speaker. There's a debate currently with regards to revenue enhancement and how we support, and this government wants to support or say it support municipalities. The question then arises, when it gets to revenue enhancement, and we spoke about yesterday, and we spoke about it in the local government, what are we actually doing? Is it about enhancing revenue, or is it about supporting economic development within the space of local government? I think that is the big question that we need to ask, because even if we enhance and we get revenue, will the municipalities be sustainable? And that is the big question that we need to ask, creating an environment for that. Let's go into SMME support, Speaker. This budget claims to support small, medium, and micro enterprises, yet the reality tells a different story. And we need to tell that story to the people. And I think in our standing committees, we've discussed it, and there is evidence that the budget is not really speaking to that. When it comes to housing development, the budget touts investments in affordable housing, yet the allocation remains disproportionately skewed to rural areas and rural people outside the borders of the city of Cape Town. Public safety and crime prevention, I mean, this is all of us have an appetite to do so. But is the budget really speaking to that? Or can we create more? Can we give more towards that specific budget allocation? But this government also succeeds in certain areas, and we must be fair in giving that. In the spirit of fairness, we acknowledge where the government has performed well. One, the revenue collection. The province has maintained strong fiscal discipline and improved revenue collection. Two, certain infrastructure projects. Some transport and roads upgrades have been well executed in select urban areas with an emphasis on urban. But it's a good thing that we're doing it. But let's agree, there is also underperformance when it comes to the expenditure, and it is shown because we've given back a lot of money to National Treasury. So, Speaker, in my conclusion, because I've limited time, the budget of 2025, much like its predecessor, continues to entrench inequality rather than address it. The budget must prioritize the needs of broader population. It also, Speaker, fails the poor communities, and the evidence is there, the numbers don't lie. So from the Patriotic Alliance, we demand a fair allocation of funds to rural municipalities, an end to political motivated budget priorities, increased oversight on underspending, under-expenditure, and strict penalties to departments that fail to spend their budgets. 4, a restructured SMME funding model that prioritizes disadvantaged communities. We do not oppose progress. We oppose selective progress.
Honourable Constable, your time has expired, but I'll allow you to conclude your sentence.
Yes, thank you. We do not reject economic growth. We reject growth that only benefits a few. The Western Cape government and the people of the Western Cape deserves a government that works for all. Thank you very much, Speaker.
Thank you very much, Honourable Constable. I now recognize Honourable Lita Kong on the online platform.
Thank you very much, Speaker. Greetings to you and to the House at large. Speaker, it is important for me to begin my debate by addressing the issue of safety in the Western Cape, or lack of it, thereof which the province does not seem to be able to provide to our people. Speaker, people thrive and live decent lives when they feel more comfortable and protected. This comfort, this comfort cannot be made possible when one's lives in a province with the highest number of contact crime and murder rate. Somlomo, due to apartheid skewed special planning, majority of our colored and African people stay in the townships, which are located very far from where business and economic activities takes place. Coupled with lack of adequate road infrastructure as well as proper transportation system, this then means that they must wake up very early at around 3 a.m. in order to travel and arrive early at work by avoiding traffic congestion. Somlomo, it is at the moment when our people try to access public transport at 4 a.m. in the dark that they encounter gangs who rob them of their belongings, rape and murder them. The issue of safety is getting out of hand and cannot be stressed enough, as the demonstration recently by the case of Twekwe in the Eastern Cape. Our children are no longer safe even in school premises. And while the incident at issue might have taken place in other provinces, Speaker, our children in the province also remain in similar danger, which is sad and must come to an end. Somlomo, the situation can only be addressed if the budget adequately speaks to safety and those responsible to administer it provide innovative solutions to our current problems. Our youth, Somlomo, is not empowered enough, and this budget does not clearly outline what it will exactly do for youth for this province in order to help them be self-sustainable, lead innovation, get decent jobs, and be prepared to lead this province and this country into prosperity. Somlomo, we cannot have the majority of our youth as social relief of distress grant recipients, because that on its own shows that our youth is not productive enough due to slim economic opportunities available to them. Somlomo, also the budget must outline what exactly it will do for the youth of this province, so far as opportunities are concerned, so that less can rely on grant handouts. Moreover, empowering our people through economic opportunities do not only refer to providing for them with work, but also assist them to start their own businesses while the province pumps real cash injection into their projects. Speaker, as countries such as the US of America began to develop inward policies which seeks to keep the wealth of their nation within their country and empower their people, this then means that going forward, if other countries are
Honourable
to
Lita Kong,
develop
your time has
similar
expired.
policies.
I'm going to allow you to conclude your sentence.
Okay, thank you, Speaker. It is for this reason why we need to invest in our own people to be the future employers of tomorrow. Thank you so much,
Thank you very
Speaker.
much. Thank you very much, Honourable Lita Kong. I now recognize the Honourable Bryant.
Thank you, Speaker. Speaker, the thing that really stood out for me last night, watching the vote in the National Assembly, wasn't the fact that the budget was passed. It was the way that the ANC and some other parties celebrated the VAT increase, dancing around and singing as if they'd won the World Cup. And you know, Speaker, this shows just how disconnected the ANC is from the people who they're supposed to represent. So completely disconnected that they celebrate raising the cost of living and forcing more South Africans into poverty. They would rather tax the average person to death than make simple cuts and concessions in the best interest of the country. The ANC is simply allergic to good governance. Speaker, the thing that really pains the ANC, though, is the fact that the Democratic Alliance governs the Western Cape so well and so fairly. And Speaker, this is precisely because the DA is committed to three things: good governance, accountability, and service delivery. And these are the principles that make the Western Cape such a beacon of hope and progress in South Africa, and why so many people are selling up elsewhere and moving here, pushing up property prices in the process. And Speaker, we all know that this province has the lowest unemployment rate in the country. And this has not just happened by chance, as the ANC would have us believe. It's a direct result of DA policies that have helped to attract investment, create jobs, and support small business. The DA understands that economic growth is the foundation of a prosperous society, which is why in the Western Cape, we put so much care and effort into ensuring that our budgets are meticulously balanced with the best interests of all residents at heart. How we choose to allocate the money entrusted to this government is not just a reflection of our own political manifestos, it should reflect what the people of our province want and need, the people who voted for all of us to be sitting here today. Our people want quality education for their children, a safe environment, job opportunities, and corruption-free governments. So let us consider education expenditure. The DA-led Western Cape leads the way when it comes to the provision of quality government schools, which is being increased by the Rapid School Build program. This is because the DA puts people first, ensuring that the scant resources available are used effectively. Speaker, some in the opposition continue to peddle the narrative that the DA is cutting funding for education in the Western Cape and only spending in certain parts of the province, that it's a tale of two cities where some areas get more than others, and it's important that we correct that. If we look at the breakdown for this appropriation, you'll find that the following increases are there in terms of our spend on education. The City of Cape Town, a 6.11% increase in education spending. West Coast municipalities, a 6.03% increase in education spending. The Cape Winelands, a 5.41% increase in education spending. The Overberg municipalities, a 6% increase in education spending. The Garden Route, a 5.51% increase in education spending. And the Central Karoo, a 4.78% increase in education spending. Now, Speaker, this shows that there's in fact a significant increase in investment in education across all regions, and the narrative of a tale of two cities is really not applicable. This government is making sure that it invests in education across the Western Cape. You want to hear a tale of two cities? How about a tale of two provinces? Let's be reminded of the audit results released at the end of last year for the Western Cape, with those of one of our neighbouring provinces, the Eastern Cape, under the jurisdiction of the ANC. And we'll start with the Western Cape. Of our 30 municipalities, a staggering 20 secured clean audits, unqualified with 0 findings. Another 6 received unqualified audits with minor issues, and 15 of the country's top 20 performing municipalities are here in the DA-led Western Cape. Now, Speaker, the ANC-led Eastern Cape paints a vastly different picture, a picture of financial chaos and mismanagement. Only 4 municipalities in that province managed to achieve clean audits in the entire province. The Auditor General flagged 43 material irregularities across key Eastern Cape municipalities, including Buffalo City Metro and Nelson Mandela Bay Metro, and this has led to 632 million rand in financial losses. As a result, the people of the Eastern Cape are struggling to make ends meet. But what do we see from the ANC? Celebrations, because they managed to increase VAT. It's unbelievable, Speaker. We also continue to hear unfounded criticism from some members of the House directed towards the Law Enforcement Advancement Programme, or LEAP, where this government is working together with local governments to improve and augment the crime-fighting capabilities of the various enforcement agencies. Speaker, there are some who want this government to cut the funding for LEAP. They say that LEAP is not achieving anything. Well, Speaker, the stats tell a very different story. A response to a recent question from my colleague, Honourable Walters, revealed the following: that since the inception of the LEAP program until February this year, 745 firearms have been taken off the streets by LEAP. Those LEAP officers have made 40,065 arrests, and mountains of drugs have been confiscated during operations. These range from mandrax, tuk, dacha, cocaine, heroin, unga, ecstasy, and more. The estimated value of the various drugs that have been confiscated amounts to around 10 million rand. They've also assisted in combating environmental crimes and catching poachers and smugglers. Now, Speaker, it baffles me as to why some members of the House opposed to LEAP seem to want these guns and drugs back in communities and the criminals back on the streets where they can keep killing children. I certainly don't, and I can assure you that the people of the Western Cape don't either. Finally, Speaker, it's important that we emphasize how this DA-led government is working to make our province a more equal place for all who live in it. If we look at the investments in education, health, and social services, which my colleagues will expand on later, you'll see that this is a government that truly cares about its people and is working to create opportunities and lift people out of poverty. South Africa has the worst Gini coefficient in the world. For those who don't know, this is the measure of overall income inequality. Do you know what, Speaker? It's currently at its lowest in the DA-led Western Cape, and it continues to come down. But this is not a cause for celebration. We're not going to dance around and ululate about it like the ANC did when they increased VAT. For the DA, inequality is a clarion call to keep our noses to the grindstone and keep working to do a better job for all the people of the province. We say yes to the appropriation budget and no to ANC VAT increases. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Honourable Bryant. I now recognize the Honourable Jacobs.
Thank you, Speaker. Greetings to all. I greet you all in the name of His Imperial Majesty, Kings of Kings, Lords of Lords. Speaker, as a start, just as a note, as ons kaalvoet loop oor Tafelberg, dan loop ons binne nie sien, ons gaan verdrink daar. Let's focus on the budget. Speaker, the budget is tabled. The budget is tabled as only numbers on a paper, but in reality, the budget needs scrutiny in its totality. The MEC states that unemployment in the Western Cape is at 19.6%. But what I see when I travel the province, I can state this is not true. Speaker, just last weekend we visited Fontein, and I can state without fear or favor, the unemployment rate is more than 90% for the predominant colored communities. Clearly, 19.6% is a reflection only of some other groups other than coloreds. Daar was eens een colored op hy site gewees. Hou op om ons mense te mislei. Speaker, the budget notes that agriculture will grow by 1.4% in 2025 and do better in 2026. The NCC hopes that the MEC will make sure that the biggest assets in agriculture, the original colored farm workers, are being paid according to the labor directives. Oh, MEC, I see in other areas farmers that employ foreign nationals are getting arrested. You need to step up. Thank you. The report indicates that the Western Cape, according to the Human Development Index, has a 40.3% people living under the food poverty line. Now, with apparently only 19.6% unemployment figure, one of the two states is incorrect. Now, this confirms my earlier statement relating to unemployment. It's a much higher figure than 19.6%. Who's misleading who? Speaker, we note that the WCED has an energy resilience program, and they're spending close to 760 million on an energy program. But 2,400 teachers just lost their jobs. We're now sitting with 60 to 70 children in the classroom. Nou wonder ek, wie gaat hy energy tender kry? Speaker, the growth for jobs proposal, it needs some serious interrogation. This program seeks to develop 600,000 jobs by 2035 at a cost of 1 trillion rand. Speaker, take note. The city of Cape Town, 2022 census recorded 4.6 million people for Cape Town alone. And this 600,000 jobs is for the entire province. But 600,000 jobs will not even cover 25% of the unemployed youth, let alone the unemployment across all age barriers. Speaker, I'm sorry to say, the match is not mathing. MEC, step up or step out. Speaker, it is clear that this DA-run province is building a private army for the elite, for the Jewish and friends of the colonizers. But, by the Bible, by the bullet, by the barrel or the gun, any which way our freedom will come. Amase.
Honourable member, your time has expired. Can I just wish to remind the members in the gallery, you are more than welcome to observe the sitting today. I wish to remind you that you may not participate in the proceedings on the floor. I now recognize the Honourable Marais. Honourable Marais, do you need the podium? Sure, you may continue then.
Honourable Speaker. Speaker, the national fiscal budget passed yesterday exposed the government's incompetence in addressing long-term economic stability challenges, giving no tax relief to the middle class. We have VAT increases and then new tariffs announced by President Donald Trump spells disaster. Our AGOA agreement with the US is in ICU, spelling disaster for the Western Cape's agricultural exports. This will be detrimental to all of us, especially the poor and the middle income taxpayer. The Western Cape deserves better. Speaker, we are serving as a lifeboat to many in South Africa, this province. Everybody's flocking here. We are laden with many passengers on board. We are struggling to cater for all of them. We are struggling to even get our children into a classroom. We are sailing through a sea of turbulent waters. Underneath the surface of these waters, Speaker, lies the corrupt, made up of criminal syndicates and construction mafias. They are waiting for this budget to be passed so that they can plan and execute their plunder of public funds. We must guard against that. Our high vacancy rates within our departments must not fuel corruption and inefficiencies. Every cent budgeted for must be spent for the purpose for which it should serve. The 300 million rand budget cut in the Western Cape's housing allocation due to underspending surely cannot be left unchallenged, Minister Simmers. We receive our equitable share based on the size of our population, but it's not kept pace with the rapid growth in the Western Cape. We are a large tax contributor to the national fiscus. In 2018-2019, the Western Cape contributed 15.5% of the total tax revenue. Old age facilities for pensioners are short supply in the Western Cape. Speaker, we call on the Minister to also please make sure that we can revive our manufacturing sector again, especially clothing and shoe factories. Chinese cheap imports have resulted in the closure of many of our factories, leaving our people unemployed.
Honourable Maria, your time has expired.
Thank you,
You can
Speaker.
conclude.
Thank you, Speaker. In conclusion, I would like to say our staff in the province and administrators are the first line of defense against corruption. We support this budget, but we ask that our funds be supported, protected, and serve the
Thank you
purpose
very
which
much,
it was
Honourable
designed. Thank you.
Maria. Honourable Minister, before I recognize you, because we're halfway through the speakers list, honourable members, I wish to draw your attention again to the time allocated in terms of the speakers list. I have allowed members to conclude their sentences. This speakers list with the time allocation has been agreed in terms of the rules. Can I please ask for your cooperation to ensure that we stick to the times allocated as per the speakers list? Honourable Minister, do you need the podium? Honourable Minister, you may continue.
Thank you, Speaker. Last week, as honourable members know, Minister Deirdre Bartman presented the Western Cape's provincial budget, which prioritised economic growth, safety, education, health and social development. But honourable members will also recall that a certain member from the ANC interrupted her budget speech with a point of order, not on some fine point of parliamentary procedure or even a fine technical detail on the budget. No, he was instead very upset that some members had looked at their cell phones. Well, clearly what he did not realize was that no one was more focused on their phone than the leader of the opposition, Khaled Said. And honourable members, we all know why. Because, of course, it was at that very moment the minister was presenting her budget speech that the ANC's leader of the opposition in the city of Cape Town, Banele Majingo, was resigning and joining the DA. Now, Speaker, I'm sure that the House would appreciate if the leader of the opposition, who I note is absent from the House, would take us into his confidence and assure us that he is not considering the same today. That he is not considering the same today. Now, Speaker, Nelson Mandela said, education is the most powerful weapon with which you can change the world. And of course, he was right. He was right. Education offers a lifeline to learners in even the most difficult circumstances and an opportunity to succeed no matter what their background or the challenges they may face. I've seen this in the stellar matric results of our schools, like COSAT in Khayelitsha and Spine Road in Rocklands and Hector Peterson in Wallerstein. So I'm sure that Nelson Mandela would turn in his grave if he could see the state of basic education today in provinces across South Africa, because at every turn the ANC has made the wrong choice for education. The ANC chose state-owned entities over education. Yes, we are a developing country and our budget is limited. We have to make choices on how we spend the budget, and our choices reveal the priorities of our decision makers. The ANC government spent 331 billion rand bailing out SOEs over 10 years instead of investing this money in service delivery for the people of South Africa. We wasted 48.4 billion rand that could have been spent on education, but was instead spent on zombie state-owned airline SAA. Just with the money used to bail out this corrupt state-owned airline, we could have universalized grade R, not once, but twice. We could have employed 9,680 teachers, not for 1 year, not for 5 years, but for 10 years. We could have built 484 schools across the country. And if the ANC government had felt that these options sounded a little like too much hard work, we could have given every single school in South Africa 1.9 million rand to spend on whatever their learners needed most. But instead, 48.4 billion rand was flushed down the drain, funding a chronically corrupt and failing SOE. And why did the ANC do this? Well, the answer is simple. It's hard to steal from a provincial education department, but it's incredibly easy to steal from an SOE. This is one of the bad choices made by the ANC, but of course, there are more. The ANC also chose corruption over growing our economy. There can be no economic growth without a capable, qualified workforce, which begins with delivering quality basic education. But here again, we see the priorities of the ANC completely at odds with securing our children's economic future. The ANC, just a few moments ago, talked about defending the poor. Well, the ANC claims to defend the poor, but then it turns around and stabs the poor in the back with a knife called VAT. The ANC is not concerned that they are adding to the tax burden of parents so that they have less money to spend on the education of their children. The ANC is not concerned that the increased taxes on goods and services will drive up expenses for schools and divert funding from things learners really need, like textbooks and stationery, which goes to show that you can have an ANC government or you can have economic growth, but you cannot have both. The local government election slogan in 2026 for the ANC is likely to be something like this: working together to make the poor poorer. Yeah. In sharp contrast, the DA Western government is making the right choices. We are allocating the largest budget in the province to education. We are prioritizing learners by protecting learner transport, school nutrition, school subsidies, and transfer payments to schools. We are building brand new schools faster than ever before, and we are stepping up for growth and jobs in this province. And Premier, it shows. We are the province with the lowest unemployment rate. We are the province with the lowest youth unemployment rate. We are the province with the highest reading scores in the country. We are the province with the highest retention rate. We are the province with the
Minister, please
maths
conclude.
results, top science results, and top candidates in the country. Because as
Minister, your time
President
has
Cyril
expired.
Ramaphosa says, there's one province that works,
Minister,
and that is the Western
your
Cape.
time has expired. Thank you. I now see the Honorable Brinkhuis.
Thank you very much and good morning, Honorable Deputy Speaker. Am I audible?
Order members. Honorable Brinkhuis, you are audible. You may proceed.
Oh, thank you very much, Honorable Deputy Speaker. Honorable Deputy Speaker, esteemed colleagues and fellow citizens of the Western Cape, I rise today to discuss the crucial role of the provincial treasury in our province's governance, and to express my concerns regarding the DA-led government management of our province's finances. While the provincial treasury is mandated to prepare the provincial budget and exercise control over its implementation, I believe that the DA has fallen short in ensuring that our province's resources are allocated and effectively to meet the needs of our citizens. The 2023 medium-term budget policy statement revealed that the fiscal environment has deteriorated, posing risk to our province's well-being. This is unacceptable, and it's clear that the DA policies have failed to promote fiscal discipline and good governance. The province is not prioritizing to spend where most is needed, while retrenched teachers, which affect disadvantaged schools only. Crime is increasing, so is homelessness due to poverty and unfair house and farm evictions. More money is spent on security in leafy suburbs, leaving businesses on the Cape Flats and surrounding areas to fend for themselves against criminal activities. To address these challenges, I propose that the provincial treasury intensify its efforts to improve budget planning and implementation, ensure that the provincial budget is aligned with the needs of our citizens, and that its implementation is closely monitored. Enhance fiscal discipline, implement stringent measures to prevent overspending, and ensure that our province's resources are used efficiently. Promote transparency and accountability. Ensure that the provincial treasury's operations are transparent and that it is held accountable for its actions. However, I'm skeptical about the province's ability to implement these changes. Given the track record, it's time for a change in leadership. And I urge my fellow members to join me in calling for improved planning that caters for all and not just preferred neighborhoods, with enhanced fiscal discipline and increased transparency and accountability. The people of the Western Cape deserve better, and it's time for us to demand more from our government. I thank you very much, Honorable Deputy Speaker.
Thank you so much, Member Brinkhuis. I see the Honorable Kaiser Philander.
Baie dankie adjunk speaker met 3 ANC-lede in die huis. Ek wonder net of die res ook besig is om by die DA aan te sluit, maar ons beweeg adjunk speaker. Agbare adjunk speakerlede en inwoners, dit is 'n voorreg om vandag te praat oor die kritieke rol van maatskaplike ontwikkeling in die bou van ons gemeenskappe, afbreek van die armoedekringloop en die bevordering van ekonomiese groei. Die Wes-Kaapse Departement van Maatskaplike Ontwikkeling doen noodsaaklike werk nie net vir die onmiddellike welstand van ons mense nie, maar ook vir die langtermyn welvaart van ons provinsie. Die Wes-Kaap met 'n bevolking van 7,4 miljoen is 'n diverse en dinamiese streek vol potensiaal. Tog staar ons steeds volgehoue uitdagings in die gesig: werkloosheid, armoede, voedselsekuriteit en die risiko van 'n kringloop van swaar kry oor generasies. Die Departement van ons Maatskaplike Ontwikkeling speel 'n sleutelrol in die aanspreek van hierdie uitdagings deur middel van kinderwelsyn, gesinsondersteuning, die voorkoming van dwelmmisbruik en ekonomiese bemagtiging. Deur saam te werk met gemeenskappe en burgerlike samelewingsorganisasies, verskaf hulle geïntegreerde dienste wat kwesbare burgers bemagtig en 'n maatskaplike veiligheidsnet bou. Adjunk speaker, die partye in hierdie huis, die ANC, PA, Aljama en Good, wie gisteraan so gesing en gedans het, speaker, is die einste partye wie ekstra finansiële druk op arm huishoudings en SASSA begunstigdes plaas. Inwoners wie se beperkte inkomste reeds dun gesaai is. Adjunk speaker, noodsaaklike menseregte items sal duurder word en verminder wat kwesbare gesinne elke maand kan bekostig. Dit lei tot verhoogde voedselsekuriteitsprobleme, skuldafhanklikheid en swaar kry vir diegene wat reeds sukkel. Sonder inflasieverwante toelagaanpassings of uitgebreide BTW-vrystellings sal die armes die groot las van hierdie vreugde en joviale uitbarstings van julle sal moet dra. Adjunk speaker, in hierdie 2025-26 finansiële jaar beplan die Wes-Kaapse Departement van Maatskaplike Ontwikkeling om armoede te verlig en sukkelende gesinne te ondersteun deur 53,8 miljoen in die armoedeverligting en volhoubare lewensonderhoudprogram te belê. Byna 90,000 kwesbare begunstigdes sal deur gemeenskapsvoeding en ontwikkelingssentrums, voedselverspreidingspunte en gemeenskapsvoedingsskemas daarby baat vind. Voedselsekuriteit is belangrik in 'n provinsie waar 18,1% van huishoudings beperkte toegang tot kos ervaar. Voedselsekuriteit gaan nie net oor hulp nie, maar oor die skep van volhoubare oplossings om langtermyn toegang tot voeding te verseker. Adjunk speaker, in hierdie tye van ekonomiese swaar kry, word ware leierskap gemeet aan die vermoë om die kwesbare te beskerm, nie om 'n laste te vergroot nie. Adjunk speaker, die onlangse misdaadstatistieke wat deur die Suid-Afrikaanse Polisiediens vrygestel is, toon 'n ontstellende werklikheid. Tussen Oktober en Desember verlede jaar het die Wes-Kaap 'n gemiddelde van 14 verkrachtings per dag gesien, met 'n totaal van 1353 voorvalle wat aangemeld is. En hierdie syfers is mense, dis vroue, dis kinders en dis gesinne wie se lewens geskend is. Die departement bly toegewyd om geslagsgebaseerde geweld aan te spreek deur plekke van veiligheid vir mishandelde vroue en kinders te befonds, asook met die ondersteuning van GBV-ambassadeurs in hoë risiko gemeenskappe en Tuduzela sentrums wat onmiddellike sorg aan slagoffers bied. Die 365 dae veldtog teen GBV wat deur die DA Wes-Kaap regering geïnisieer is, fokus op die bevordering van bewusmaking, die verskaffing van ondersteuning en die voorkoming van toekomstige geweld. Adjunk speaker, soos die minister van Finansies my aangehaal het, ek gaan nie nog lank praat nie, want ons het 'n maatskaplike projek om reg te ruk. Wat ek wel kan sê, adjunk speaker, SASSA se kerntaak is om toelaas te versprei, maar dit lyk of die ANC minister se kapasiteit oorskry word. Die voortdurende mislukkings in toelaverspreiding beklemtoon haar onbevoegdheid en 'n onvermoë om selfs die mees basiese prestasiestandaarde te bereik. Teen hierdie tempo, adjunk speaker, behoort die ANC minister en haar kamerade liewer hul parlementêre kaarte adjunk speaker in te ruil vir SASSA kaarte. Want hulle sal dalk dan kan sien uiteindelik hoe ons mense swaar kry en ons mense se lyding kan verstaan wat hul mislukkings op ons mense se lewens veroorsaak. Speaker, die vaardigheidsontwikkeling, werkskepping en gemeenskapsgebaseerde programme bou ons 'n provinsie waar sosiale welvaart en ekonomiese geleenthede hand aan hand gaan. Ons lig nie net mense uit armoede nie, ons lê die fondasie vir langtermyn geskiktheid. 'n Floreerende samelewing is een waar almal die vermoë het om suksesvol te wees, waar gemeenskappe sterk is en waar mense bydra tot gesamentlike groei. Agbare Speaker, die werk van sosiale ontwikkeling is om 'n beter toekoms vir almal te bou. Speaker, terwyl ons na die toekoms kyk, kom ons herbevestig ons verbintenis hier in die Wes-Kaap om geleenthede te skep vir almal en waar dit toeganklik is, waar gesinne bemagtig kan word en waar gemeenskappe veilig is en op hulle eie bene kan staan. Ek dank u, Speaker.
Baie dankie. Ek sien the Honourable Christians.
Thank you, Deputy Speaker. Deputy Speaker, we must agree that the VAT increase is an onslaught on the most vulnerable, the most poor, and the ACDP rejects the VAT increase. Deputy Speaker, alarming to this province, as the Minister said, is the increased demand on services and the background of the turbulent global economic environment we're in. So, Speaker, safety is an important factor in this province. But I believe as the ACDP, more can be done. And I've said it over and over again. Bringing back the walking bus, making sure that our learners arrive safe at school and back at home is important. Although there is 600 neighborhood watches and CPFs, we still believe, Deputy Speaker, that there must be certain incentives for these neighborhood watches. Females get up early in the morning, 5 o'clock in the morning, to make sure that a single mother or grandmother gets to the bus terminus safe, gets to the taxi rank safe. And I've asked it over and over again, even if they only get a funeral cover when they are killed on duty, will assist. But Deputy Speaker, let me just talk about education. I've mentioned it in the standing committee. We believe as the ACDP partnering with the private sector is a must. And this lesson can be learned from Pinelands High School. Pinelands High School has 61 teachers and only 28 is paid by the WCED. Pinelands High School, as example, they've got a class ratio of 1 to 17, and I want to, Minister, to say to the principal, Mr. Graham Sayer, that well done, because they also produce the top student in the country. Top student in the country, 100% pass rate with matrics, 86% bachelors. So it shows you something there is working, and as a province, we can learn from that. But apart from that, Deputy Speaker, they have 40 support staff, and only 5 is paid by the WCED. This, I believe, is what the government should do, more aggressively engaging with private sector to make sure, because we are not going to sustain taking from our reserves, Minister. Over the long time, it's going to hurt us. Taking from our reserves is going to hurt us a long time. I know it's necessary, but we need to do something to get the private sector involved. Thank you, Deputy Speaker.
Thank you, Member. I see the Honourable Heron.
Thank you, Deputy Speaker. Deputy Speaker, the 2025 Western Cape budget claims to present a vision for economic growth, infrastructure development, and social progress. However, a closer look reveals that this budget prioritizes short-term optics over long-term needs. Despite allocating 101 billion rand to education over the MTEF, our schools are struggling under the weight of increasing enrollment, overcrowded classrooms, and a shortage of teachers. And to make matters worse, the Western Cape has once again opted not to fund the full equitable share allocation for education to education. 31.3 billion rand was allocated in the equitable share for education, but this province has decided to underfund it by 2 billion rand in this financial year. The additional 549 million allocated for learner growth over the next 3 years is simply inadequate. True investment in the future demands proper infrastructure, well-paid teachers, and expanded educational support, all of which is insufficiently addressed in this budget. Meanwhile, the province has chosen to pour nearly 4 billion rand into safety programs, including 1.3 billion rand for the Law Enforcement Advancement Plan, or LEAP, and other policing initiatives over the MTEF. Additionally, the safety sector has received almost double its equitable share this year, jumping from 347 million to 684 million, funds that could have been bolstering education. And despite these massive expenditures, crime and gang violence remain rampant. More policing and reactive measures are not enough. Addressing the root causes of crime, poverty, inequality, and lack of economic opportunities is essential. On the health front, the Department of Health faces a 405 million rand shortfall following the withdrawal of USAID and PEPFAR funding for HIV and TB programs. Despite an overall allocation of 100 billion rand over the MTEF, frontline services remain overstretched and critical programs are at risk. The province should have anticipated this funding gap and taken proactive steps to secure alternative revenue to protect public health. Equally concerning is the government's increasing reliance on private funding to fund public infrastructure, with plans for a 200 billion rand pipeline of bankable projects by 2030. Private investors expect a return, which could lead to creeping privatization, user fees for essential services, and reduced public accountability. The details of these agreements remain opaque, raising concerns about long-term financial risks. If these projects fail, taxpayers will ultimately bear the burden. This budget underfunds education, overspends on ineffective policing, allows healthcare crises to deepen, and invites private interests into public infrastructure without transparency. The people of the Western Cape deserve leadership that prioritizes their needs, not one that shifts responsibility to the private sector while
Honourable
neglecting
Aaron.
systemic challenges. Thank you.
Thank you so much. I see the Honourable Minister Bredell.
Honourable Speaker, let me begin by congratulating Minister Bartman and the team of Provincial Treasury for putting together a budget during a very difficult financial time period in our country. Speaker, after 30 years of ANC mismanagement, our country has now finally run out of money. Our national economic policies, which are ANC policies, and our international relations policies, which are also ANC policies, have brought us to where we are today, on our knees. Speaker, from 2015 to 2024, the Western Cape population increased by 19.6%. The main reason people run away from ANC provinces to a province of hope. Honourable Deputy Speaker, ons het 15 jaar waterplan wat kyk na populasie en ekonomiese groei in hierdie provinsie. Waterbronne en waterinfrastruktuur in elkeen van ons munisipaliteite. Speaker, ons gaan meer moet doen om watervermorsing, lekkasies ensovoorts te verhoed en ons gaan meer aandag aan die herverbruik van water moet gee in die toekoms. Ek is dankbaar vir die aandag wat waterprojekte in hierdie begroting geniet. 118 miljoen oor die mediumtermyn vir die Departement van Omgewingsake en Ontwikkelingsbeplanning vir 38 waterbronne te moniteer om kwaliteit en volhoubare water te verseker. 43 miljoen rand vir die Departement van Plaaslike Regering om munisipaliteite met ons munisipale watervolhoubaarheidsfonds te ondersteun. Speaker, through the Department of Local Government, the Sustainable Infrastructure Development and Financial Facilitation Program, we have secured 73 million rand from Switzerland and 33 million from Denmark, which will contribute towards 154 million rand needed to take 17 water and wastewater projects valued at more than 2.2 billion rand to take them from feasibility to bankability. To ensure the successful rollout of the CDAF program, we appreciate the allocation of 13.3 million rand to fund the dedicated project management support program for this province. Locally, we are also experiencing climate change. Winter storms have destroyed infrastructure in recent years. We are challenged by wildfires, and the next drought is only one dry winter away. Speaker, ons rampbestuur afdeling is al wat tussen ons en die lewensverlies en beserings van eiendomsbeskadiging staan ten tye van vloede, veldbrande en ander onvoorsiene rampe. Ons erken dus die 205 miljoen wat oor die mediumtermyn belê word om ons rampgereedheidsgrondslag te versterk. Ons moet eenvoudig belê in die vroeë waarskuwingsstelsels, mannekrag, opleiding en toerusting om situasies te kan hanteer wanneer dit gebeur. It is essential that we rethink our approach to infrastructure projects in the context of climate change. We need to rethink safe development protocols with river floodlines and potential storm surges along our coastline. We will spend 120.6 million rand on maintenance and repairs at our Cape Nature Reserves, but we need to do it in such a manner that it can withstand future storms. Speaker, this links to the very important work that the Department of Environmental Affairs and Development Planning does with EIAs. We will continue to streamline EIA processes to ensure compliance and mitigate environmental risk associated with infrastructure projects. The allocation of 9.5 million rand will strengthen the EIA systems over the MTF period. Ons land se skuldvlakke is te hoog, agbare speaker. Ons kan nie meer leen nie. Nou wil die ANC BTV of VAT verhoog. South Africa does not have an air force anymore, Honourable Deputy Speaker. We have zero defence. Under the ANC government, everything is broken. We have 11 Roy Falk helicopters, not one is working. We have 24 Augusta helicopters, not one is working. We have 4 Superlink helicopters, not one is working. We have 8 other helicopters, guess what? Not one is working. We've got 39 Oryx utility helicopters. Guess what? Out of a fleet of 86 helicopters, only one is working, and that one is reserved for the President. Honourable Speaker, Swaziland, Honourable Deputy Speaker, Swaziland can take us tomorrow with 3 hang gliders, and we've got no defence, Honourable Speaker. That is how pathetic the ANC government is. That is what they think about the residents of South Africa.
Order, members.
Honourable Speaker, to get out of the mess the country is in.
Honourable Minister, there is a point of order.
Agbare Speaker, ek is erg bekommerd oor wat ek nou gehoor het en daarom wil ek vra of ek 'n vraag kan vra aan die agbare minister oor die toestand van ons weermag.
Honourable Minister, are you prepared to take a question?
Honourable Speaker, with respect, I don't have time, but I think it values the discussion in the standing committee. Can I continue?
You may proceed.
Honourable Speaker, to get out of the mess the country is in, we need economic growth. We all know that. The global economy is set to grow by approximately 3.3% in 2025. We are only expecting a growth of 0.8% in South Africa. How is this possible for a developing country like South Africa to grow less than the global economy? The answer is, of course, the ANC, who over the past 30 years made disastrous economic choices. Speaker, die Wes-Kaap is steeds die provinsie met verreweg die beste munisipaliteite in die land. Dit het baie harde werk gekos om daar uit te kom en dit is steeds baie harde werk om dit daar te hou. Dit is net stabiele plaaslike regering wat beleggers uit die privaat sektor lok. Ons benodig beleggers om ons ekonomie te laat groei en om werk te skep. Speaker, that is why we appreciate funding in this budget that goes to initiatives which support and strengthen our local government, such as 12.6 million rand for capacity building and support to municipalities, 19.6 million rand to strengthen municipal support initiatives, 3.9 million rand for the programs, including service centers and satellite offices. 4.6 million rand for the Tucson Service Center grant for operational support. 9.1 million rand for Community Development Workers Operational Support Grant. 12.2 million rand for the Municipal Service Delivery and Capacity Building Grant. 63 million rand over the MTF for the Western Cape Financial Management Capability Grant to support municipalities with water, energy, and financial planning programs. 49.7 million rand towards the regional or RCEP program, Regional Planning and Management Program, for 13 municipalities over the MTF program. Of achtbare Speaker, as ek Minister Baartman kan aanhaal, we must ensure that our municipalities are bright shining lights on the hill. The Western Cape government must enable them in this regard to capacitate them to drive economic growth and job creation in the Western Cape. Honourable Deputy Speaker, not only do I support this budget of 2025-2026, but I also appreciate and acknowledge it for being in a very tough or being in touch with the current challenges we must face in our country and in the province. To the opposition benches through the Speaker, if you do not support this budget, you were either not paying attention during the discussion process or you still do not understand the budget. I thank you.
Thank you, Honourable Minister. I see the Honourable Win Vogel.
Honourable Speaker of the House and the suffering masses of our people in the Western Cape, we meet today in the second month of April, a month where we remember our fallen heroes and heroines. We remember the blood of Krasani that stained the earth of Boksburg. It is the unbroken spirit of Oliver Tambo in exile. It is the defiant cry of Winnie Madikizela Mandela, who stood in the trains of Soweto and said, they think because they have put my husband in Iceland, the ANC is finished, but I'm still here. The people are still here. And as long as I live, I will fight. Today, we are continuing this fight. We fight against a budget that is not just an insult to the poor, but a declaration of war. A budget that says to the homeless mother in Kailicha, sleep on the street, to the sick child in Guguletu, die in an overcrowded clinic, to the unemployed father in Beaufort West, starving quietly. This is not just misgovernance, this is cruelty. Look around you, Honourable Speaker. There are two Western Capes, one Cape where the wine flows in Constantia, where DA MPLs and councillors dine in Camps Bay restaurants, where white children attend schools with Olympic-sized swimming pools. In another Cape, the Cape of Storm, the Cape of the poor, the Black African and coloured, the forgotten, where clinics have shortage of medicines, where patients being turned away, where schools have no textbooks, where police stations have no hope. The DA built this divide. They sustain it, they profit from it. While the DA boasts about economic growth in lowest unemployment rate, 7,907, so 7,090,
Order members.
797,000 of our people are unemployed in this province, and a further 1.5 million people are not economically active. The number of unemployed people in the Western Cape is more than 50%. The population size of the Northern Cape and those who are not economically active is more than half of the population of Lesotho. This clearly shows that we have a serious crisis of unemployment. The stepping up for growth and jobs mantra by the MEC is another blue lie to mask their failures and expose that they are doing nothing to address job crisis in the province. Maar onthou, die Here is die Here en hy sien alles. Indeed, you need to step up by stopping mask your failures to create jobs by comparing Western Cape unemployment to other provinces. Honourable Speaker, the DA has turned the Western Cape into the gangster paradise. The raid on JP Smith and Limberg's office proved the DA's ties to the underworld. So you must really step up and stop lying to the people. While the DA preaches about good governance, 620,000 families are neglected on the housing waiting list. The DA not only failed to spend 300 million of housing grants, but they're also cutting human settlement expenditure by over 69 million in this budget. This is not just misgovernance. This is hatred of the poor. While they posture about safety, teachers in Philippines need police escort just to enter their classroom, and a woman in Marcus barricade their doors against gangs. The MEC claims to be investing 3.9 billion for safety over the MTF, while in actual fact, safety budget has been slashed by 11 million in this budget. This is the DA real legacy, a province where the rich thrive and the poor are left to die. Honorable Speaker, we are having this debate as South Africa burns with rage over the brutal rape of Twekwe, a girl who went to school in the Eastern Cape and never came home safe. As we echo the loud cries of #justice for Twekwe inside the walls of the legislature, we must know that everyday women and children in the province are hunted. 1,957 women were sexually assaulted in these 3 months between October and December 2024. And 1,353 women and children were raped. Yet the DA response is pitiful. 235 million over the next 3 years to support gender-based violence. That is only 78 million for victims' empowerment this year, less than the cost of single luxury estate in Camps Bay. This is not just incompetence, it is complicity. The DA cautioned perpetrators by underfunding shelters, ignoring survivors, and refusing to declare GBV a provincial emergency. What do you expect from a party that protects Feral Pain and Graham Paulso, who are accused of sexual harassing female co-workers inside the government office? What do you expect from a party that allies with AgriForum, who defend rapists and murderers in court? The DA's betrayal extend beyond our borders. Their reckless lies about white genocide to Donald Trump alongside AgriForum and Solidarity directly caused the withdrawal of 405 million in US HIV TB funding. Today, 7,000 vulnerable children risk losing life-saving treatment because the DA choose racial fear mongering over public health. This is not just incompetence, it is treason against the poor. We cannot allow the DA to continue undermining our national independence in this fashion. MEC Ivan Meyer betrayed South Africa by visiting Taiwan, threatening our trade with China. The DA sabotaged AGOA by joining AfriForum on
Honourable member,
about our nation.
Honourable member, are you able to take your seat? There's a point of order. Yes.
Chair, can you make, Deputy Speaker, can you make a ruling as to whether it is parliamentary for the enemy of the poor to call the minister a traitor?
Thank you so much. I will not comment on the content of the particular speech. Members are fully aware that should they wish to bring a substantive motion, they are able to follow the rules in that regard. But I see the Chief Whip.
Well, Speaker, the Honourable Member Van Vogel is in violation of Rule 59B. She is indeed reflecting on the integrity of our very Honourable Minister of Agriculture. I think she needs to be asked to withdraw, and we know her record on withdrawal, so please ask her to withdraw.
Honourable members, I will consult the table staff in that regard and revert back. Member Van Vogel, kindly proceed.
Thank you, Speaker. Speaker, in an attempt to play party politics in national government and the poster like they are defending the poor, the DA rejects the national budget. There's no reason why the DA should continue to form part of the union. The DA must step up by stepping down out of the GNU. While they post as party for the poor at National Parliament, here in the Western Cape, they're proposing a budget that is anti-poor. The veiligheidskwessie by die laerskool Bondebok in Swellendam is kommerwekkend. Met dele van die gebou wat die risiko loop om in te stort. Dit is onaanvaarbaar dat die situasie vir 6 jaar afgeskeep word. Ten spyte van die vorige skool wat die departement gewaarsku het. Die welstand en opvoeding van die studente moet prioriteit wees. Dit is van kardinale belang vir hierdie departement om onmiddellik op te tree om die infrastruktuurkwessie aan te spreek en te verseker dat die skool 'n veilige leeromgewing is. We will not rest. We will fight as Mama Winnie did for the Western Cape that works for all its people, not just the rich. The ANC reject this budget. I thank you.
Thank you, Member Windvoorgel. I see the Honorable Johnson.
Honorable Deputy Speaker, South Africa stands at a crossroads, a failing national economy, a fiscal vice-tightening under ANC mismanagement, and a national budget shrouded in uncertainty. The Western Cape refuses to retreat. While others falter, we are stepping up, keeping this province open for business, resilient in crisis, and unshaken in our commitment to those that the ANC has once again left behind. We are committed to confronting these challenges head-on, and as the DA, we remain resolute in our determination to support the most vulnerable by stabilizing essential social services relied upon by so many, such as quality education, healthcare, and social care, which are crucial for paving the way to a brighter future. Because in this province, dignity is non-negotiable. Furthermore, we will continue our efforts to build a better future for everyone who calls the Western Cape home by prioritizing and investing in key elements of a thriving and growing economy that creates more jobs and opportunities for everyone. As we turn our attention to the main budget for the Western Cape, it is an absolute honor to be speaking in support of this budget. The bulk of the budget, around 80% of the total spent, is directed towards social services over the medium-term expenditure framework, ensuring quality education, healthcare, and social development, while simultaneously fostering and enabling an environment that removes barriers to economic growth and job creation. Over the MTEF, more than 215 billion will be allocated towards social frontline services, including education, health, and social care. Honorable Speaker, firstly, children are the future of this country, and we will continue to invest in education. The Western Cape Education Department initiatives such as the Back on Track programs and the Rapid School Build programs are yielding positive outcomes. However, despite these advancements, the WCED is still facing significant challenges. Our schools are experiencing an unprecedented rise in student enrollment, leading to overcrowded classrooms and deteriorating learner-teacher ratio. This rapid growth necessitates an urgent response, including improvements in education infrastructure and increased funding for hiring more teachers. And for this very reason, this government will be investing 101 billion in education over the MTEF, 4 billion for early childhood development to improve foundational learning, 2 billion for school infrastructure, including rapid builds to address overcrowding, and 549 million for additional teachers to reduce learner-educators ratios. Secondly, we remain committed to investing more funding in quality healthcare within our province. The Department of Health and Wellness continues to excel and can take pride in their achievements, even with fewer resources. Every health department is facing a financial crisis that jeopardizes its healthcare system. Unfortunately, no one is immune, but the Western Cape Department is doing whatever they can despite being pushed to the brink. They are still managing their finances responsibly, and our facilities are not running out of any supplies like we are seeing in some of the other provinces under ANC control. To strengthen the Western Cape healthcare system, 100 billion will be invested over the MTEF. 19 billion for healthcare workers in 25-26, restoring staffing level post-pandemic, and 295 million for Tygerberg Hospital redevelopment, modernizing critical facilities. Thirdly, Honorable Deputy Speaker, while the National Treasury still does not recognize social workers as frontline services, the Department of Social Development continues to address and deliver for citizens of the Western Cape. Despite facing several challenges due to increasing populations in the province, 8.4 billion will be invested in social development over the MTEF, including 235 million for gender-based violence victim support and 822 million for child protection services. And lastly, 142 million for food security programs tackling rising poverty. Honourable Deputy Speaker, the Growth for Jobs strategy isn't just about reaching a 1 trillion rand economy. It's about building an economy that works for the entrepreneur in Kailicha, the farmer in Beaufort West, and the factory worker in George. It's a budget for all, which is why we are targeting inequality at its roots: infrastructure, jobs, and energy. To achieve this, we are prioritizing key drivers: 31 billion for critical infrastructure, connecting rural towns to urban hubs and unlocking productivity across all regions. 42 million to cut red tape, ensuring that the Western Cape remains the easiest place to do business in Africa. And lastly, 382 million for 17 energy projects, adding 1,400 megawatt of new capacity by 2030 to keep industries running and households powered. The results speak for themselves. The Western Cape already boasts the lowest inequality in South Africa with a Gini coefficient of 0.59, yes, which is still too high, but it's a testament to our commitment to inclusive growth. Our Human Development Index of 0.76 is the highest in the country, and it reflects better education, healthcare, and living standards. But we can and we must do more. To those who say that this budget only works for Cape Town and big cities, this is an absolute lie. Take the Central Karoo, where per capita spending is 34% higher than the provincial average, more than 15,000 rand on every resident compared to 11,600 in the rest of the province. This is not accidental. It's a deliberate down payment on equity by directing resources to rural regions like the Karoo, which is definitely not a leafy suburb. We are rewiring the engines of growth for all of our people. Agbare Speaker, ek deur u sou ek hoop dat die agbare constable aandagtig geluister het na wat ek nou net gesê het, maar kom ek sê dit vir nog 'n slag in mooi Afrikaans. Vir diegene wat sê hierdie begroting werk net vir Kaapstad Metro en ander groot stede, dit is 'n absolute leuen. Neem die Sentraal Karoo distrik waar die per capita besteding van hierdie Wes-Kaap regering 34% hoër is as die provinsiale gemiddeld van 11.634. Daar spandeer hierdie regering R15.609 vir elke inwoner. Dit is nie net toevallig nie, dis 'n doelbewuste verhoogde uitbetaling om gelykheid te bevorder. Ek hoop regtig vandag was die laaste keer dat ons in hierdie huis gaan hoor dat die Wes-Kaap regering nie kyk na die mense van die Karoo nie. Laat die syfers maar die praatwerk doen. But Honourable Deputy Speaker, growth cannot thrive without partnership, and this is why this budget allocates 403 million to Wesgrow over the MTEF period, a direct investment in enabling investment. Wesgrow has already secured 8.7 billion in new investment, which is expected to enable close to 11,000 future jobs. While to date, the agency has already secured over 2.6 billion in export declarations, proof that when government and business work together, we don't just grow the economy, but we can transform lives. Honourable Deputy Speaker, through you to Member Nkondlo on the cost of living. The member ignores the fact that Cape Town's utility increases are the lowest than other metros because we govern better. Our property prices reflect success. People flock here because we create jobs and we attract billions in investments. If the ANC governed competently elsewhere, perhaps residents wouldn't need to move to the Western Cape for opportunities. If that's too much to ask, they should start doing something constructive and petition their colleagues in National to allocate more funding to the Western Cape so that Minister Tertius Simmers can build more houses for the residents of the Western Cape. To the Honourable Heron, through you, Deputy Speaker, to those claiming that the safety plan is diverting funds from core services like education, this is simply not true. Speaker, an additional 1 billion has been allocated from the Provincial Revenue Fund over and above what we received from National. Let me be clear, the safety plan is not taking funding away from any essential services. Honourable Deputy Speaker, the DA in the Western Cape is stepping up. We are providing that growth and justices are not opposites, they are partners. With this budget, we call on businesses, communities, and every level of government to join us. Together, we build a province where progress is measured not just in rands, but in lives uplifted. From Winelands to the West Coast, from Cape Town to the Karoo, this budget works for you. Speaker, to this end, the DA supports this budget. I thank you.
Thank you, Member Johnson. I now see the Minister.
Thank you so much, Deputy Speaker. I will try my best to get to every topic, but I know that my colleagues will also be quite robust in making sure that we all are readers within the budget vote week that is coming up. I want to start with VAT, Deputy Speaker. There's going to be a 0.5% increase in VAT in year 1, and then another 0.5% increase is coming in year 2. That is essentially a 1% increase. Our goods and services, now I'm not talking about other things, I want to show you the impact it may have on the Western Cape government budget. The Western Cape government budget currently, our goods and services, die goed wat ons koop, die tafels, die penne, die medicine, die plasters, die goed wat ons koop word goods and services in hierdie blou boek genoem. We are going to be spending in this financial year 19.074 billion rand on goods and services across our respective departments. That's what we speak about when we say mos nou procurement. Now, if you take 1% of our procurement budget of goods and services, almal betaal VAT. Deputy Speaker, including government departments, pay VAT on goods and services. So the medicine the member is complaining about, that there's not enough money for medicine, there's going to be a 1% increase on VAT, which means the minister is going to be able to buy less plasters, less medicine. If there's an increase of 1% on VAT, then the energy hike from NERSA that they're complaining about, when you buy your electricity, you see the VAT percentage of your electricity is going to go up. So when you buy that, please, I want people to make a note. They must look at the VAT percentage now at 15, and then they must compare the VAT hike on the electricity bill after the VAT increase. So if you take an approximate 1 percentage point on our current financial year, which is not budgeted for, Deputy Speaker, so which means that Member Christian spoke about how there's going to be risks going into our reserves. Now the question is, when there's an external shock, that's what we mean in finance, external shocks, die geld moet van iewers afkom. So we're going to have to approximately 1% is 190.74 million rand just on our goods and services. So when the members come and they say they want more medicine, we're going to send them back to go ask for 190.74 million rand for medicine, because medicine is also in our top 5 items for procurement specifically. And just so that it is clear, Deputy Speaker, just so it is clear, because I want it in the record, I want the history to record it. The following political parties at a national level voted for VAT. The UDM, BOSA, the Patriotic Alliance, Action SA, Rise Mzansi, Hal Jamaa, Member Brinkers, it's online, ANC, IFP, PAC, and Good. And I wanted recording in the Hansard for the rest of history that these are the people who voted for VAT.
Order, members. Order, members. Order, members. Please proceed, Minister.
Thank you, Deputy Speaker. And unlike other members, I don't have to ask you to protect my time, given that I have unlimited time today to speak. Deputy Speaker, it is true that the Western Cape is becoming more expensive, but the reason the Western Cape government is becoming more expensive is because national government is becoming more expensive. I'm going to tell you why. I'm going to go through the list. Energy. NERSA has increased the electricity tariffs. Member Wenger, for example, mentioned to us, Eskom electricity price increase is 11.32%. But in the city of Cape Town, for example, as an example, it's only increasing by 2%. That's more than 9 percentage points difference. In terms of personal income tax, now I want to speak to the people of the Western Cape about personal income tax. We haven't had increases in the personal income tax bracket for a long time. And now what national government is doing is it's not increasing the inflation portion of the personal income tax bracket. Deputy Speaker, I would like to tell people how it's going to affect their personal income. Their salaries
Honourable members, Minister, honourable members, the running commentary is drowning out the speaker. We are wrapping up the debate. Minister, I trust that you will now be able to proceed.
Thank you, Speaker. So, Speaker, if you are getting a salary, if it now is 10 Rand, let's make a 10 because we must keep the information simple. If you get a salary increase by your employer that is inflation or above inflation, because your employer wants to do the right thing, they want to make sure you are able to adjust to the cost of living in the economy. But if the tax bracket that you are in for national government does not increase, then there's a possibility that you might end up paying more taxes because your salary increase rather than less. So the ANC national government that put the VAT into the books, they're not doing you a favor. In terms of the VAT specifically, we've already mentioned how it will increase even electricity. It will increase every good and service in the provincial government. In terms of the Central Karoo, and Speaker, one of the new innovations that we did this year is we actually did this little summary booklet if members or constituency heads want to take it to their communities. And in the summary booklet, and I'm going now to the Central Karoo, the Central Karoo is getting the highest per capita spending amount from the Western Cape government, from our province. This is at 15,609 Rand. The provincial average is 11,634 Rand, which means that our spending from the Western Cape government is approximately 4,000 Rand more per person in the Central Karoo than the average Western Cape resident. It's an e-book. As Deputy Speaker, readers are leaders. If you're not going to read, then I don't know what you want me to engage on. In terms of Beaufort West and energy, and this has come up previously, Beaufort West se boeke is anderste as die munisipaliteite wat sterk is, want jy is onder 'n finansiële recovery plan. Get your books right first, and then we will talk about triple Ps. We can't talk about triple Ps and the luxuries. You can't have a champagne budget, a champagne taste on a beer budget. You must get the books right first, and then you can consider your triple P. Deputy Speaker, on housing, and Speaker, Deputy Speaker, I want to quickly just speak on housing. The Department of Infrastructure has spent their housing budget. There's no money to give back because they spent what they told the national government to spend. So we will fight to get our money back because there's no underspending. They got the data wrong. They must give us our money back. And I'm sure that Minister Simmers will help the members to show them how we're going to be fighting for our money back. I know there's another province that will also be fighting for their money back, and perhaps the ANC needs to be careful what they are arguing for because it's very much an ANC province that has the same problem when National got their data incorrectly. In terms of, govern julle nie Gauteng nie. Oh, okay. And then, Deputy Speaker.
Order members. The Minister has unlimited time. Just to again indicate to members that interjections, running commentary will ultimately further extend the time that the Minister will use today. May we hand the floor back to the Minister. Thank you.
Okay. On education, let me quickly deal with the numbers in the book. And I give mooi pink notakies on my gemaak hierso. We are going to invest 101 billion Rand on education over the MTEF for the 3 years, page 167, of which we will spend 74.283 billion Rand on compensation of employees. That's page 176. You will also see on that same page, it's a 4.51% increase in compensation of employees. Then For the 2025-2026, equitable share allocated to the department amounts to just under 45%, and that's higher than the National Treasury recommendation of our full equitable share allocation. That is page 173. That is an 8.79% increase in the equitable share for education. Then, and I'm going to come to the full equitable share now. I just want to go through the respective departments. Speaker, in health, we will invest 100 billion rand, page 221, over the MTF to strengthen our health systems. Of this, 60.2 billion rand is on compensation of employees, or 60.2%. This is an 8.36% increase in compensation of employees. And in the financial year, the equitable share allocated to the department will amount to just under 36% of our full equitable share allocation, which is a 5.77% increase on page 231. Now, the 36 and the 45 is important. I will get back to that now. The weighting of the education and health data in the PES total, when you go unpack the PES, and I'll get to social development now, amounts to 75% of the data input into the national formula. We in the Western Cape are going to spend just under 81% of our equitable share just on education and health. The 6 percentage point difference that you will see in the health budget, that amounts to 5.7 billion rand. To put that into context, the members on our other side of the house is asking us to cut the health budget. That is what they're asking us to do. To put the 5.7 billion rand into context, in the health budget, provincial health services costs approximately 5.136 billion rand, the full program. Then healthcare support services that deals with the warehouse, the medical depot, your laundry services, your engineering, your forensics, your orthotic and prosthetic services, that's approximately 691 million rand. So if you add that up, that is what this house is asking us to cut from the health budget, because the 36 plus the 45 gets you to 81%. Now let's get to the social development, because there's a poverty component. National doesn't call it social development, they call it a poverty component. In the PES, the poverty component data input is 3%. We are allocating to the Department of Social Development 3.96% of our equitable share, of our full total equitable share. So if you add health and education and social development as data inputs into the PES, you will get 78%. If you look at our actual, where we're putting the PES amounts, education, health, social development, the total is 84.62%. That's more than 6 percentage points higher than the PES. So what this house is asking is that we must cut health and we must cut social development. That is what this house is asking of us. And just to make a note of it, that the PES is actually a funding tool and not a budget tool. And despite that, we are allocating even more than what that recommendation would be to our 3 departments, so that we can make sure that we are able to bolster services in our province. In terms of the Black Business Forum, I actually invited the Black Business Forum to the budget speech, me, not other members of this house. So I'm not sure what the extra frustrations are that they may have raised, but we actually have a very good relationship with the Black Business Forum, where we are now sharing information. And we even said to them, if you don't understand how to apply to certain programs across government, all programs across government is open for applications. We will send you the respective links and information. And even, for example, in our procurement client center, we have lots of training that people can connect to, whether you're a small business or entrepreneur. We have lots and lots of training across our province in terms of the procurement client center that we can link people to. In terms of the one member said that the budget is not pro-poor. Deputy Speaker, I completely disagree. Not only is the Gini coefficient, which measures inequality, the lowest in the Western Cape of all provinces, but 80% of our full budget, including now when you add the provincial money to the national money that we're getting, 80% of our total budget is going to social services. This is majority for education, for health, for social services, housing and community amenities. We will also be spending more than 2.1 billion rand in nutrition in schools. We'll be spending more money in DSD on nutrition, and health will be spending money on nutrition malnutrition, because we also need to bring that food poverty figures down. Just because we are the lowest does not mean we're going to not work to get it even lower. We are going to work to get it even lower, but we need to also give credit where credit is due. Deputy Speaker, in terms of Member Constable asked whether the revenue enhancement, will they be sustainable? The reason we have the revenue enhancement programs is in order to help you become sustainable, because there's a lot of pressures on municipalities in our country. So we need to be able to help them to become sustainable. And we are actually, from the financial management grant, we're actually going to support 12 municipalities, including all 3 local municipalities and the district in the Central Karoo, with programs from that financial management program to assist them with financial sustainability across their finance, energy, and water programs. In terms of, can we give housing more money, a Member Constable? If National gives more money, we can pass on that money to the Department of Infrastructure. But I know the Department of Infrastructure is also going to be very innovative in terms of exploring alternative and blended revenue sources. In terms of underspending, I'll just quickly deal with it generally and then specifically. So some underspending, sometimes you will see because someone owes you an invoice. So if Deirdre owes Yaku an invoice, when must Yaku pay it if Deirdre is not going to give the invoice to him? Yaku can only pay the invoice when Deirdre gives it to him. So some of that general underspending might be something like that, and you must interrogate the department to ask, what is that, for example, for? Some underspending, for example, and Min Meyer will agree with me, in the Western Cape government, we don't do fiscal dumping. We are not going to get money on the 27th of March, on the day that Deirdre tables a budget for the Western Cape government, but then you expect us to spend money within 2 working days. How do you spend 300 million rand in 2 working days when you get it on the 27th of March? Niaman, Deputy Speaker, we don't believe in fiscal dumping. And in those cases, you ask for a rollover and you show that we are going to spend the money, but we're not doing fiscal dumping. Because if we don't want national government to do fiscal dumping, where they try to get rid of money, then we also can't do fiscal dumping. We will do the rollovers, but we're not going to act like you can spend 300 million rand in 2 working days. It's not okay. Then on the human settlements, we already dealt with it. Human settlements have spent their money. Min Simmers can tell you the money is spent because the things have been delivered. So the underspending, there's no underspending. National must not, they can't take the money. What money are they going to take back? No. We're going to challenge that. Then in terms of Member Constable said, we only support economic progress that benefits the poor. But Deputy Speaker, the PA is part of the members in the National Assembly who supported the VAT, and VAT affects all of the poorest people in South Africa. I don't understand. You can't say that you only support economic progress that benefits the poor, but then you vote for VAT. You can't have the two in the same. Member Lita Kong spoke about that residents are waking up early for transport. I completely agree, Deputy Speaker. It is unacceptable that the residents in our country, and particularly in the Western Cape, that we don't have more access to.
Honourable Minister, are you able to take your seat?
Is the Honourable Minister prepared to take a question?
Honourable Minister, are you prepared to take a question?
Speaker, Deputy Speaker, I'm currently responding to questions, but I will take your question.
Honourable Leader of the Opposition, you may proceed.
Okay, could the Honourable Minister explain to us how she's going to be able to manage her viewpoints on the VAT increase, on various other issues such as the NHI, nationalisation, with the new coalition partners, the MK Party and the EFF? Thank you.
You may proceed, Minister.
The interesting thing, and I've said this before to members of the House, in committees, I've said this before, and there's a love letter that a particular national department will eventually get. I actually think it's already been served upon them this week, but I cannot be 100% sure. But in the provincial treasury, for example, even before coalitions and GNU and al die goeters, we work with maturity. There's this thing called, Deputy Speaker, called fiscal maturity. We must be able to be mature in the debates that we have. And we will work with the National Treasury, with or without a coalition, because we want fiscal maturity. We want to be honest with one another. We want to work with one another. We want the best for the residents in our province. So we will continue working with respective departments, because it's not your money, it's the people's money. You get taxes from all 9 provinces, it goes to national. It's not your money. You're not doing us a favor by allocating provinces money from taxation. It is your job. It is your job to allocate taxation money to the 9 provinces. So we're going to continue working well with the respective departments. In terms of member Deputy Speaker, I was with a member responding to Member Litterkong's question. She said that, residents are waking up very early for transport, and I completely agree. We need reform when it comes to rail. And I ask that the members of this House please join us in our call for devolution of rail, because we need to be able to get our economy moving. And that includes getting people to work in a safe, affordable, and reliable manner. In terms of youth employment and social services and balancing the social services budget, the member is correct that if we grow and create jobs, we will end up spending less on our social services pot. It is a given, because if you are able to have access to a job, you're not necessarily going to need the social service net. But we need the social service net because we need to be able to protect the most vulnerable of our communities. Member Litterkong also asked, why didn't I mention youth unemployment? I did actually have a section on youth unemployment in the budget. It was quite long, but it's also on pages 93 to 96 and 113 to 115 of the overview book. It's quite a bit, so I would encourage the member to go through those, and if there's particular questions for respective departments, to raise them through the respective budget votes. In terms of the unemployment not being true, it is true. The population growth has been 19.6%. So when you look at 12.4% employment growth over the period, you can't say that there's no employment growth, because what's happening is the population growth is outpacing all of the economic gains we are making. I actually don't know of areas currently that is growing economically at 19.6%. So even 12.4% employment growth in our province is really absolutely, we've outshone ourselves. In terms of no employment for colored people, so in the PERO, that we tabled last year, colored employment between the second quarter of 2019 and second quarter of 2024 increased by 6.2%. And in the same book, that African employment has also increased. The race actually in the PERO that you will see that have decreased is actually white employment. Now, in the Western Cape, we are not about race, but if you're going to bring the statistics, then please acknowledge also that African and colored employment over the past decade has increased. In terms of agriculture and farm workers and labor laws, I would like to encourage the member, because the member made reference to the possibility of illegalities. And Minister Meyer has been very clear. If there's illegalities that are happening, please report it to him so that they can investigate the respective matters. In terms of building an army for certain groups of people, Deputy Speaker, I'm not going to endorse blasphemy in this regard. But just to be clear, the areas where we are prioritizing hotspots is Delft, Khayelitsha, Philippi East, Nyanga, Mitchells Plain, and Gugulethu. And this the minister is doing based on data and evidence, because we need to be able to get the crime statistics down in those areas, particularly because when you look at the overall data and evidence, that's where the majority of that murder and contact crime is occurring. In terms of Member Wenger asked us to please review the pairs for population growth, and we are working hard to be able to get National Treasury to really review that formula for population growth. Part of this is the fact that we are the third largest province in terms of population, but we're getting the fifth largest or fifth smallest share in terms of the provincial equitable share formula. Member Bryant, I agree with you regarding the successes of LEAP, and I hope that the House will support our call for national government to also increase the SAP's resources, and that it is distributed fairly to the areas that need it the most, and that those be assigned in the areas with the highest crime rates. To Member Murray from the Freights Front, regarding that we must challenge the housing data. We will definitely challenge the housing data, and Min Simmers is leading that fight to challenge the housing data in this regard. Member Brinke spoke about that our provincial fiscal environment has deteriorated. I just need to correct that. That is not the province that reference was previously made to. It is the national fiscal environment has deteriorated. He said that we're only spending security in leafy suburbs. But Speaker, I just mentioned these 6 areas, for example, where we're spending our LEAP resources. And according to the opposition, I don't think they would interpret this as leafy suburbs. Member Brinkers also spoke about we must enhance transparency in terms of the spending. Speaker, the type of documentation, this does not include all the extra documentation that departments also publish. We publish our full budget, the overview, the summary book, the public procurement disclosure reports of the province, the infrastructure investment document and report, which we also tabled last week. We table financial and non-financial expenditure to the budget committee every quarter. We table infrastructure spending and progress every quarter to the budget committee. So, Speaker, I would actually now like to make an executive authority commitment to this House. If there, and this is particularly to respond to Member Brinke's, if there is a new innovation in transparency that you wish for the Provincial Treasury to assess and consider, please submit it, because I do not recall you ever submitting an innovation on transparency. But Speaker, here's my condition. Readers are leaders. So we will consider the new innovation, but the members of this House must please read the documents, because you can't not read the documents, but then you ask for the same information that were in the same documents that we have already tabled. So please, if you promise to read, we promise to consider new innovations. To Member Philander, Kaiser Philander, sorry. Ja, buurvrou, ons kan nie lang praat nie, ons het 'n projek. We are going to take this growth and jobs plan in the provincial strategic document, and we are going to push for that growth for jobs. We're going to push for safety. We're going to push for an educated, healthy, caring society and an innovative culture and effective governance. We are pushing for it, and we have tabled a budget for that. Member Christians mentioned incentives for neighborhood watches and walking buses. We do have a very tight fiscal environment in South Africa. So my first question would really be is how do we assess for sustainability? Because that is a big matter that we need to consider in budgets, but perhaps with the respective departments, that is a big question that needs to be answered, sustainability. But not just that, sustainability is how you are sustainability in the context of the national government having to actually provide for South African police services, but not adequately or sufficiently providing for it. In terms of reserves and getting the private sector involved, definitely, this is why we are exploring alternative and blended financing. We are going to establish an alternative and blended financing framework, and this will assist departments in their work. We will appoint dedicated capacity for this alternative and blended financing that we will be exploring. We will appoint an infrastructure to assess the projects, because you have to assess the projects that come through before you go to the loans committee at a national government level. And you need to be able to have an infrastructure pipeline, and infrastructure is assisting us with that particular, putting that infrastructure pipeline together for government. So we are exploring alternative and blended financing, and we're also working with the World Bank and the National Treasury on a credit guarantee vehicle in order to de-risk infrastructure projects. In terms of, we've dealt with some of the education items. Then in terms of the PEPFAR funding gap, Speaker, I did mention that the reason we increased the reserves in the first year was in order to anticipate the possible external shocks that might be coming to the system. So when a shock has not materialized yet, we leave it in the reserve until it is necessary to be able to tap into that. And there's been a number of external risks that are in the system at the moment that has not necessarily materialized just yet. In terms of saying that growth for jobs is just a mantra, it's not just a mantra. It is even in line with the work that was tabled in the National Medium-Term Development Plan. It's not just a mantra. We are serious about growth and jobs. We have seen it in our previous statistics, and we will work even harder to get our unemployment rate down even further. Premier gave us a very ambitious target to get to, so we need to be able to get to that, and we will work very hard in that regard. The safety budget being slashed. So I just quickly need to, now I'm going back to the reserves because this is an accounting change that the member is referring to. So on page 137, so you will see that the Western Cape Liquor Authority is no longer classified as departmental receipts. It now goes to the Provincial Revenue Fund first. So you're going to see a decrease on the one hand, and you're going to see an increase in the other hand. So the money is not gone. The money isn't going somewhere else. It is an accounting change because it's now considered a taxation that has to go to the Revenue Fund specifically. But despite that, in year 2 and year 3, you see that the budget then compensates and increases again in year 2 and year 3. Year 2's one is 779.9 million rand, and in year 3 is 812.96 million rand. But there is a note in the book regarding the changing of how it is considered in accounting terms, essentially. Speaker, we do have a lot that we still have to do, but we cannot claim that this budget is anti-poor. 80% of this budget is going to social services, and just under 85% of our total equitable share is going to education, to health, and to social development. Speaker, I want to end off by just saying thank you to everyone through the different committees, the different chairpersons, and the robust debate. And we always try our best to take some of the recommendations even and to try and see where we can improve upon our work, as well as thank you to my colleagues in the cabinet and as well in the respective departments who worked very hard to put this together. But Speaker, I want to end off by saying to the people of the Western Cape, and I know there's a lot happening on TV right now regarding the national government, and I've gotten a lot of questions regarding whether the Western Cape government doors are going to close. It is not. The Western Cape government remains open. Whether the national budget gets passed, the Western Cape government remains open. Our services will not stop. And part of the reason that our services will not stop is because we prepare. We prepare for the possibility of external shocks. We prepare for unavoidable and unforeseen expenses. This is what good governance means. Good governance means planning for the possibility of external shocks. And we will make sure that the Western Cape government remains open for the people of the Western Cape. I thank you.
Thank you, Honourable Minister. Members, that concludes the debate on the consideration of the principle of the bill. Are there any objections to the approval of the principle of the bill? Agreed to. The Secretary will now read the bill.
Western Cape Appropriation Bill.
Members, the House will deal with a separate vote on 4 and 7 April 2025. That concludes the business of the day. The Secretary will now end the meeting and all members will be exited from the sitting. Honourable members, the House is adjourned.